Hi everybody, Rob here, and I want to do a review on the 5th edition, the latest version of the Dungeons & Dragons game as produced by Wizards of the Coast, and as contained in the latest version of the Player's Handbook. I've been myself looking for reviews on YouTube and other places because I'm interested in the 5th edition and how it changes the game. I have personally been part of the playtest from the beginning of the various playtest packets that have come out. So my group and I have been playing through them. But be that as it may, some of the contents of the Player's Handbook are still surprising to us. In looking for reviews on the web, I did notice a lot of the reviews that I came across seemed to be reviews that went along the lines of, wow, here's the book, isn't it beautiful, look at the great artwork, great production quality, and isn't it cool that my character can now have power X or power Y. And when I saw these reviews I worried because, I've heard them all before, and I'm not interested in the production values of the book. I assume, because Wizards of the Coast is the company that it is, that those production values will be high. I assume that they will be, the rules that is, will be well edited, and the artwork will be top. That I think goes without saying, but as most of you probably know, game systems, particularly role-playing game systems, they're not judged ultimately by how good the books look. They're judged on how they play. So what I wanted to do was to have a more detailed assessment of what's in the book, that's the Player's Handbook, and to assess how those rules will play. Just to come clean at the beginning, to let you know what subjective baggage I carry with me. I started gaming in the 80s, first edition D&D, and I've been through the various versions as they came and went. So if you'd asked me at the time when I was playing with this book and when I bought this book, what do you think of the book, I would have said fantastic, such cool things, amazing how this game works and what I can do with it, my character can do. And then I got this book, 1989, amazing, incredible change of art, change of perspective. Certainly the characters had all these things they could do in addition to fighting, casting spells. Wonderful book, changed the game ultimately, I think. But they all do that. Here's another one. This one came out. It's been a long time since I'd seen a version of D&D. It was amazing. This book is immense in terms of what it has in it, the options it has for characters. Once again, production quality, changed the game completely. And recognize that? This 4th edition Player's Handbook. I read this, I thought, wow, that's a great step in the right direction. Maybe finally I can play that campaign or run that campaign that I've always wanted to, where the success or failure of a certain character depends not on what magic items they have, but on their own inherent progression as a character. So, sort of force-fed my own gaming group into the 4th edition. I must admit we enjoyed the games, but we didn't enjoy them nearly as much as we had in the past, and we realized that this game was taking us down a direction which we didn't want to go, and so we were quite happy to take part in the 5th edition playtest when it started. That's not to blame 4th edition for that process. I think that process started way back with this book. I'll talk about that a bit later. So what's missing? Well, I've showed you all first editions 1 to 4 Player's Handbook. I don't personally have yet my own copy of the 5th edition Player's Handbook. That's my next admission. I'm getting it, waiting for it from Amazon.com. But one of the prices of living in the third world is the 3-week plus delivery time for books like this. So I can't wait to get my 5th edition Player's Handbook, but I've had a good look at it. I know what's in it, and I want to start by what I consider to be the most fundamental changes. And these are not just changes in the way it looks or the way it feels, but I think these are going to be changes in the way that it plays at your table with your gaming group. And I'll be interested to know if I'm correct when you do play. If the various things I say in this video and others are correct, drop a comment just to let me know. Or if you think I was wrong or proved wrong by your game, do the same. I'm interested to hear what you have to say. So the first major change, I think possibly the biggest change in the system, is, we can describe it under the heading that Wizards of the Coast is giving it, that is bounded accuracy. Now, bounded accuracy, as I understand it, is just a rather fancy term for a flatter character progression. Well, what does that mean? Well, I think it's quite good and maybe informative to demonstrate it using a comparison, and it's an imaginary character. So imagine, if you will, a character of 20th level. That's difficult for some to do. I know my gaming group will tell you that's almost impossible for them to imagine, because none of them are ever going to get anywhere near that level, and that's probably true. But let's imagine that such a weird and strange thing were possible. The 20th level fighter has a strength of 20 by the time he gets to 20th level, and other than that, he's stock standard fighter build. As we'll discuss, in certain versions of the game, that's not possible, because he will by definition have a much higher strength. But let's imagine this is possible. So starting with 1st edition D&D, if this particular fighter with his strength of 20 reached 20th level, he would have approximately 90 hit points in first ed. He would have an attack bonus, and I'm converting here obviously because first ed didn't talk about attack bonuses. It worked on THAC0 and negative ACs and all those sort of things, but converting it, which is quite a simple thing to do, you would have your fighter would be sitting at about a plus 19 to hit. So you've got a 90 hit point guy, probably sitting with an armor class, assuming no magic items, of between 2 and 0 using the old system, probably between an 18 and a 20 in the new system, with a plus 19 to hit. So that's your 1st edition fighter. Your 2nd edition fighter, same parameters, strength 20, level 20. He is he's slightly better, because he's using things which are increasing his bonuses to hit, and that's because in 2nd edition, I beg your pardon, in 1st edition, there was no such thing as a strength 20 fighter. He would have been a strength 18 in brackets 50. Remember, there were those percentages above 18 that could be reached. So it's only really with 2nd edition that 20 strength becomes possible. And this guy would have slightly fewer hit points, around 87. His armor class would be around 20 in modern parlance, 0 in the old ones. He was different in that he suddenly had more attacks per round. So now he's got 2 attacks per round, and he's got a plus 22 to hit. Alright, so he's slightly higher than the 1st edition guy, with slightly fewer hit points but a better armor class. But other than that, they're more or less on the same ballpark. The real change happens with 3.0 and 3.5 D&D, because suddenly a fighter level 20 with strength 20, although his armor class is probably an equivalent of around 18 to 20, is now sitting on 160 hit points. So he's double what he was in the 2 previous editions. And what's more, he's now got 4 attacks per round. To add to that, he's got an attack bonus of approximately plus 25 and at least 11 feats. You remember the feat system was fairly common in 3.5, and fighters in particular acquired feats very quickly. So you've got around 11 feats, and assuming he puts most of those into helping his fighting skills, you can imagine what sort of abilities a character of this level would have. Okay, that's 3.5. 4 changes things a little bit because the fighter's hit points are slightly lower. The same guy, he's now at 145 as opposed to 160. His armor class is around the same. He has about 12 feats. Once again, we'll assume that he puts those feats into his fighting abilities, or at least some of those feats. And he, unlike the 3rd edition guy, is slightly different in that rather than having a very good attack bonus, he's got a toolbox full of if one wants to be uncharitable, we'd describe those as MMO feats. He's got a box of feats which he can bring out to double and triple his damage, add bonuses to attack, get more attacks per round, and the player is selecting from all these. So it's difficult to compare that particular fighter. Certainly not on a straight line as it was possible for 1st, 2nd and 3rd edition. 5th edition, we can go back to that straight line because when one looks at the 5th edition fighter, you will see that at 20th level, this guy with 20 strength is now sitting with far lower plus 11 to hit on his attacks. So it was plus 19 to plus 22 to plus 25, and now he's down to plus 11 in 5th edition. What's more, in addition to unlike the 3rd edition guy who had these 11 or so feats and the 4th edition guy who had 12 feats, your 5th edition fighter is now down to 7 feats. Now, in order to get a strength 20 in 5th edition, he would have had to use 2 of those feats, or the equivalent of 2 of those feats, or maybe actually he would only have to use 1 of those to increase his strength to the 20, which he now has. So now he's only got 6 feats left. So he's got half the number of feats of the 4th edition fighter. He's got a plus 11 to hit. His hit points are fairly standard, almost equivalent to the third edition guy. But the real difference, as you can probably see from that analysis, and I use the fighter because it's probably the easiest of all the classes. It's got the least nuances associated with it. So you can see that what 5th edition has done is completely flattened the advancement, the advancement by level of the fighter's ability to do damage and to hit his target. Now, why have they done that? Well, before why, the question is what have they done to do that? They've done it by means of what's being referred to as a proficiency bonus. You remember that in the 3rd edition, 3.5, all characters had this base attack bonus, and that base attack bonus was higher or lower depending on what class you chose, and it went up at different increments depending on what class you were. Well, 5th edition has done away with that. 5th edition has decided that every character has what's known as a proficiency bonus. Proficiency bonus is the bonus the character gets in all its actions that pertain to things in which that character class is proficient. So, for a fighter fighting with weapons, etc. Proficiency bonus is only a plus 2 for levels 1 to 4. Levels 5 to 8 it becomes a plus 3, then a plus 4, and then a plus 5, and eventually at level 20 becomes a plus 6. Now that is the only bi-level advancement the character is going to get as a straight mechanical bonus to its ability to hit. So you can see immediately the difference in this particular system. You've got a much flatter progression, which means not only are your characters going to advance more slowly, they are going to have this slow progression mirrored in the monsters and creatures that they fight. Now, if monsters do the same, what's going to happen is it's going to mean that there's a greater spread. In other words, monsters are going to be threats for much longer to characters. So whereas in the past, kobolds and goblins and things like that, once your characters reached 3rd level, they really weren't a problem anymore. I mean, your party of 5 characters, 3rd level, would tear through a group of 15, 20 goblins. Whereas in this system, I suspect, and I hope I'm right, but I suspect we're going to see those type of monsters. Your 1st level, 2nd level, low level creatures staying a threat for much longer. At least I hope that's what happens. And certainly that seems to be the intention from the so-called bounded accuracy that we're seeing in the new system. So when it comes to changes in the new system, in 5th edition, that to me is probably the most fundamental. It seems that is going to alter more the feel of your game or anyone else's game, more than any of the other mechanics and cool things that have been thrown into the 5th edition. Bounded accuracy will change the game, and it will change it in a way that I hope increases the longevity of threats, creatures, traps, and all the things that you want to play with and enjoy, and that's what makes the game fun. It's going to make it easier, I think, to be a DM and to write your own stuff, to make your own adventures. You will have a greater range of creatures that are appropriate for the level at which your characters currently are, and I'm no doubt that we're going to see variants on the stereotypical, on the normal tropes. So we're going to get your standard first level goblin, or 1 hit dice goblin. There's going to be a 2 hit dice goblin, and maybe a goblin boss or some other thing that'll have slightly different benefits, higher hit points. And with those additions and mixing up those encounters, and I imagine a lot of the encounter building stuff that was learnt through the much maligned 4th edition, I think Wizards are going to provide DMs with a lot more fairly juicy material to work with. And for those of us like me who really enjoy running games for low and mid-level adventuring parties, I think that's going to be a welcome change. Anyway, that's my first point. I'm going to make others in subsequent videos. I'd love to hear what you think. Drop me a line, put something in the comments. I'm a big boy. If you don't agree with me and you feel you want to put your reasons, please do. I'd love to hear them. And if you do agree, let me know. Otherwise, enjoy 5th edition. I think I'm going to, from what I've seen so far. And hopefully my next video I'll be able to hold up my copy of the Player's Handbook.